Welcome back to the desk here on the second play-in stage day here for European Master 2020. Joining me on the desk is Moswarm and Troubleinc. And I have to ask though, Moswarm, how did Wheel of Gaming actually lose this game?
Yeah, it was a very hard game for them to play because their engage was so inconsistent. They had a huge lead, but if you have to force team fights by the likes of a Sion, a Thresh, and a Rek'Sai, that ends up just falling flat in the mid to late game. They give away the lead at the Baron fight, and eventually we see Sector 1 clawing their way back into the game with the very good scaling carries such as the Rise and the Aphelios.
I mean, Knight is known for his Rise, but something we were talking about during the game, Trouble, there's something for you. Two things on WLG's side is the decision making. They lose that fight after the first Baron attempt, and then it all goes south. And you said something about a champion that would have fit better in this composition.
Okay, let's first stick to the decision making because it felt crazy to have an overfed Rek'Sai and an overfed Sion, and you choose to pick up a 4v5 without your Sion there, which ended up in an ace against Wheel of Gaming, and then they were able to cash in so many gold bounties. They were able to push so much vision into the Wheel of Gaming jungle, and of course push so many waves that they actually got back so much gold from that and were able to scale a little bit faster to the late game. And of course I talked about the Javan because you have Misfortune, you have the Azir. We've talked about how important the Javan is to dive the backline and lock up these immobile carries so all that AoE falls onto them. And like Bat said as well, all of these inconsistent engage, the Thresh hooks were not landing, or if they were landing, it was on the Cho'Gath. What are you going to do? The backline was just so protected from the Blitzcrank and the Cho'Gath and the Lee Sin kicks that no one could enter the backline.
Yeah, it was really weird to see Double Aim not moving with his team. That actually eventually cost them a lot. They were in a 4v5. We see Icebreaker getting caught in his own jungle multiple times.
The what? Oh my god!
Something you said as well, Moswarm, was about the bans from Wheel of Gaming. They ban out the Ezreal, they ban out the Koolein. There's a really known champions for practice, but they don't ban the Aphelios. And you just see he has a tough early game, but eventually when he gets his items, when he gets the kills, he's super deadly.
Yeah, I can understand it from Wheel of Gaming if you go into the match with a game plan like we want to win this match in the early game, in the mid game, before the carries come online. Then the draft is pretty much fine. Then you don't want to face the Ezreal who can be safe. However, they get to a very messy mid game. They don't manage to close the game even though they had such a big lead. And then they have an Aphelios against them who comes online at 100% crit and 5 items. And then you're pretty much just, inting draft at that point. So it's unfortunate for them.
Yeah, props for Second One. They're the first ever representatives from the Belgian league. They take down their win, a very important win to make them advance into the knockout stage. Our next game is going to be Defusekids versus Mad Lions, and we've talked about the Mad Lions before, Trouble. They haven't looked too well, and it's all eyes on them to see if they are the favorites, if it's reasonable to call them the favorites, because losing versus a Baltics team, with all due respect, I mean, that's
hey,
really
come on, man.
I mean, Mad Lions are known to be a good team.
Yeah,
they are one of the favorites in the playing stage, but still they don't show up yet.
No, they haven't showed up. Again, it's due to the one-dimensional kind of play style that can be very easily read and played against. But right now you're playing against a Chapapi, you're playing against Alois, who's so good at absorbing all this pressure. So they're going to have to find more creative ways to play their game. Yeah,
we can talk about this game more and more and more as much as we like, but I think it would be even better if we just go watch the game. We're going to head on over to the pick and ban. We're going to see if Mad Lions will be able to pick up a win, or it is the Dutch League winners, the Defusekids, who will be doing good business by taking a win versus Mad Lions.
Hello and welcome back to the second game here of the second play day from the European Masters play-ins. That's a very long sentence. I'm still Xsodus. I'm joined here by the wonderful Ibriz here. We kind of hot swapped our dino. I think I like that. I don't think we ever casted together, Ibriz, did we?
You think you like that? All right. I don't know. I like him a lot, but yeah, I'm rather fond of you too, Xsodus. Really good to be casting with you here. And of course, we do have a pretty hype matchup. One of the decisive games of how this Group C is really going to turn out.
Yeah, Group C, we talked about it on the desk a little bit already. It did show I mean, it has Mad Lions in it, Mad Lions Madrid. So they should come out on top. But do you believe they're gonna come out on top against Defusekids? And if not, how are they gonna stall, or at least how are they gonna defeat Mad Lions?
So you see the LeBlanc ban immediately come out of DK, and that's just because that has been Hatrixx's go-to champion throughout the regular split. He takes control of the map on it, he just trashes kids left and right, and it's really difficult to stop that ball once it gets rolling. I like the Azir ban from Mad though, because they were like, alright, we might give you Azir if we can get the LeBlanc on the table. But thinking about the champions that these guys do play, you have a couple of things available.
Yeah, meaning that's Defusekids his game plan. I mean, is it the Alois show sometimes from Defusekids? That's what I'm still wondering, because he is able to play strong side and weak side top, and if he's on the strong side, he can carry very hard. I mean, we did see that game where he got camped over and over and over again. He had, I think, might be mistaken, but it's not too far off, 7 CS at 5 minutes, just because he kept getting dove and dove and dove. And at 20 minutes, he had a CS lead. How does the man do it? And he keeps surviving as well.
Yeah, thinking about Alois, he's been such a consistent performer for DK throughout the past 2 years. And of course, just the fact that they've added a new carry threat in the bottom lane in Goose does mean he's getting a little bit less resources relative to what you maybe expect from the guy. And honestly, it took Defusekids a little bit of time just to get used to playing without Alois being the strong side consistently that he used to be in the past. That isn't to say that they necessarily have suffered for it, because Goose has been so huge for them.
Hello.
Some breathing room.
Yeah, who's not going to have some breathing room is the bot lane from Mad Lions Madrid, or they might, depends on how you look at it. Defusekids is a team that can actually play Yasuo Gragas pretty effectively. I mean, Goose does play Yasuo, and they, if I'm not mistaken, can also flex it, because this might be Yasuo either going to bot or either going to maybe mid. Don't think Chapapi is as proficient on it, but the Gragas can definitely be flexed in certain lanes.
Yeah, the thing I love about Yasuo Gragas, and the thing that most people love about it, is it doesn't matter how the first couple of levels go, just from level 6 onwards, you have that kill pressure, you can shut down Flakked, shut down Prime, and again, something else I love about the Yasuo is that the two comfort picks of Flakked throughout this entire season have been Lethality, Varus, and Misfortune. Also Aphelios, not so bad for him, but oftentimes that does hit the ban phase. But Yasuo, beautiful into all of these traditional AD carries, and you really will presumably see that go to the bot lane for Goose, just to shut Flakked down.
And Mad Lions Madrid here picking up the Lee Sin, meaning that it is one of the strongest junglers at the moment, and I mean pretty heavily favored throughout all fronts. But Defusekids doesn't mean that you want something like a Jarvan, something like a Rek'Sai. That's already talked about. Hey, yes, Rek'Sai does well into Lee Sin, but a Jarvan makes you more utility based in a team fight.
Yeah, so I really like the how we're thinking about what junglers you could see from Hadess. The thing is about Hadess is that he's not had the greatest tournament of his life so far. During Defusekids' struggles, a lot of the criticism was towards him because he does tend to look a little bit lost, especially after the early game. And I think that putting on a jungler that can do as much as it can during the early stages is probably going to be not necessarily a solution to that, but it's just going to make that mid-game drop-off that he's prone to doing a little less impactful.
I like the Diana ban here, by the way, from Defusekids. Really does not go well into their or against their team comp rather. If you ever have a Yasuo or a Gragas going in, you don't want to disengage, or at least not to re-engage from Diana. So the Defusekids need to be careful that, yes, they're up against Lee Sin, yes, they're up against Sett, so they already have that going against them, but they need to look for the right engage.
Yeah, definitely do have to consider that, and also just getting favorable matchups for Chapapi on his signature Xerath. Of course, Chapapi having the Xerath, having the Kassadin banned against him pretty consistently in the domestic Dutch league, and these are just valid assassin-centric answers from Hatrixx that can, again, take over the map, like the LeBlanc that we see hitting the bench immediately in the draft phase, and just, yeah, whenever Mad Lions have convincingly won a game, it's been through Hatrixx taking over the entire map.
Yeah, Mad Lions is going to take over the entire map because of Hatrixx. So they haven't late game win condition. in form of the Aphelios. They have a lot of engage in form of the Sett and of course in form of the Lee Sin. But can you call a Sett and Lee Sin consistent engage? I don't really think you can. But Leona, on the other hand, that's another story entirely.
Yeah, so we said there was a lot of kill pressure from Yasuo Gragas onto the enemy bot lane. The thing about Leona here is that it's not for kill pressure onto Yasuo Gragas, it's for kill pressure onto Xerath. As soon as you get your boots, you just roam, you leave lane, you let Aphelios farm up, you say, look, maybe hang back a little bit Flakked, farm the jungle a bit, go for some kind of risky resets, but let the Leona take control of the game. Dictate the pace of how much space you're going to give to the Xerath, and just shut down this champion for Chapapi, who has not looked too consistent himself as of recent.
I'm looking at the last pick that the Defusekids might lock in. I don't know how well this fits into their team comp. Well, we're going to find out. It is being locked in. So you have a, let's call it a strong side top with a very engaged heavy bot lane. I mean, with the Yasuo Gragas roams, how hard are we actually going to see these Yasuo Gragas roams starting from level 6? Because yes, it is a very effective, it's a strong combo, but again, they're going to be able to leave lane.
So it's actually the Yasuo Nautilus bot lane together while the Gragas is heading into the jungle, and I think that that does hamper a little bit of that insta-kill potential from level 6. It means the 4v4 is arguably stronger. Camille, of course, wants to sit in a side lane, as you mentioned, and I think that that's a good attitude to have as the Defusekids. Have that as your game plan. Use Alois as your strong point, because he's, on paper, head and shoulders above Werlyb, who's just been so inconsistent. And if you consider the fact that Xerath has the semi-global ultimate, Yasuo Gragas with the Predator on the Gragas as well, do have a lot of map-wide rotation capabilities, and that just means that if Alois does push up in a side lane, you have a lot of backup potential for him if Mad wants to answer it.
So Mad's team composition here, they're looking for a very good mid-game, a very strong mid-game, while I think the Defusekids, they just want to engage as soon as they hit their respective power spike, and the power spike from the Defusekids is going to come a little bit sooner than the one from Mad.
Yeah, I definitely do think that the Yasuo coming online at 1 item is going to be something pretty scary. That being said, Aphelios with Infedge nowadays is not all that, ignorable. My main concern is that we have Akali, who is, of course, hit or miss, very much snowball or just don't do anything. And I think that while Mad are very capable of getting Hatrixx on the board, and they can especially expose Chapapi plus Hadess, who have been the points of inconsistency for this Defusekids lineup as of recent, it's still a bit of a gamble that they're taking. But after, systematically dispatching Defusekids the first time these two met in the opening game of the EU Masters, I think they're definitely saying, look, we're not shaken by our loss to Kenty. Instead, we're just going to take the game to you, and we're going to see if we can win in that mid-jungle 2v2.
And people might be wondering, why might this be an important win for both teams? Not only is it a possibility, of course, getting out of your group, but also the seeding-wise means that if you get first in your group, you're going to have a little bit of more, let's say, comfortable spot once you get to that knockout stage. And it is the Defusekids versus Mad Lions here. And Mad already looking for some very early on dominance with his Lee Sin warding the red buff.
Yeah, so a bit of an aggressive posture coming through from Mad there. The issue with Lee Sin committing a ward there, though, is that he doesn't have access to the ward jump as soon as he ticks over to level 3 now. So a little bit of a shakier early gank, but still nothing too terrible for Koldo. Hadess, he's gonna just farm up to level 3, just do one side of his jungle, clear it out completely, and then go to base, recall for Predator boots, swap out his trinket for red trinket and then look to influence the map. But pretty non-interactive jungle matchup for the first couple of levels.
No shenanigans, no invades this game. We have seen quite a lot of invades, actually, in the first day from EU Masters. But right now, it doesn't seem like more shenanigans going on. I do want to remind people of the Sector 1 game. Last thing I'm going to say about Sector 1. If you go for an invade, make sure the enemy doesn't have vision on you, because then you see what happened to Phoenix. And we don't want to repeat of that one again.
Yeah, absolutely not. And now just taking stock of where we are at the game at level 1, we have a good indication of how these lanes are going to play out just by looking at the runes, of course. Akali with Conqueror, pretty standard now, wants to get on top of the Xerath, take the prolonged trades. But speaking of prolonged trades, Hail of Blades for Flakked on the Aphelios. That's burst, that's instant, that's hopefully Leona CCs Yasuo before he can chuck out a wind wall, and we get some damage down before we dip back out. I'm really looking forward to see how this bot lane does interact, especially with Mad taking firm control of these bot side rushes so far.
Yeah, and with the Hill of Blades pickup, that actually means, or that ties into something you said already, with Infinity Edge, Aphelios cannot be ignored, and you have a lot faster power spike. Also, you have a lot more potential in fights too. If you get a tag on someone and get those 3 auto attacks off, DK needs to back because you don't have the health to survive that one at that point in the game.
Yeah, pretty crucial actually is the fact that Hadess actually didn't go base to get his Predator boots. He wanted to wait out the ward on his red buff. He wanted to secure that for himself so he didn't get 3 buffed by the Lee Sin. This means the Gragas doesn't really have a legitimate gank path for the first couple of levels, and it does mean that Koldo has the onus on rotating for one of these 2 scuttle crabs that is about to spawn.
Yeah, immediately we see Flakked here trying to go for a very early play thing. That's something you can do with a Yasuo bot lane. Yes, you might be able to deny him some farm, but you want to push in this wave as soon as possible because Yasuo does not have the wave clear at this stage in the game to deal with it.
Speaking of pushing in though, we already have Alois applying the pressure up top, which is not something you necessarily expect a Camille to have this early on into a set, and I think that it's a little bit too much lenience being given in the trades from Werlyb, and B, doubly surprising when you consider that, as we mentioned, Hadess not really in a position to gank because he's a Predatorless Gragas.
Yeah, Hadess here also sticking towards the top side. Alois taking a little bit too much damage here. Needs to be careful with the sweet spot from the Haymaker. So, Hadess here sticking to top side, making sure that Alois is in a safer position than he actually needs to be. Right now we see Koldo rotating towards top lane. We're going to a small little pause that gives us a little bit more time to maybe talk about those keystones and maybe talk about how these rotations from junglers have actually already affected the game.
Yeah, so again, we saw the early ward come through onto the red buff of the Gragas from Hadess, and that did mean that he wanted to go for the full clear rather than the 3 camp, head back to base, get your tier 1 boots so you can actually Predator gank. And that does mean that the jungler of Defusekids just going to have a little bit more time on the training wheels before the Gragas can really enter full stride and, just influence the map as a whole.
Time on training wheels. That's actually very semi-funny but mostly interesting statement. Does this mean that DK really... Because if they give Mad too much time, I do feel this is a game that might be able to get out of control. And the one thing that if it gets to that point where Mad is just caught up, they have a gold lead, the one thing that DK can do very well is work via a split push. So you have a Camille, which can split push very hard, which can outplay a lot of people, especially when she has Lifesteal or GA and a Trinity Force in her kit, and you need to send 2 or 3 people to stop her.
The thing about this, though, is that you do have the Xerath from Chapapi just clearing waves mid as well, very reliable in that regard. But you have your fair share of engage on the side of Mad Lions, because you have the Leona Solar Flare, you have a good amount of follow-up there, but also just speaking about Mad Lions, and that Leona in particular, as soon as she ticks 6, expect the mid lane to just explode. You should see Prime dropping those Leona ults mid lane onto Chapapi wherever possible, and just getting as much follow-up to actually get the Akali ball rolling. Speaking of Akali, though, you need to punish her now if you're Defusekids, really, because if you're not punishing the Akali pre-6, that's not going to get all that much easier past 6.
Now imagine you're a champion who scales with both AD and AP, and you have a very gold-efficient item for that, which also gives you... Oh yeah, Hexagon Blade. So, and as you said already, Akali needs to be shut down now. She cannot be able to scale. She does not... or she cannot afford to let her back with that gunblade, because then suddenly everybody has noticed it, or anybody who has ever played against Akali knows, oh wow, she's very strong at the moment, and she does have a lot of kill potential.
Yeah, the thing about Akali though is the fact that she will not be able to match the Camille in the side game later on, and we will probably see that if the game does continue to go on for another 20-25 more minutes, as we are jumping right back into the action, Xavier.
First Dragon will be spawning. First Dragon will be spawning in a couple of seconds, so that means that both Mad and DK are looking for maybe a little bit more jungle pressure towards that bot side right now.
Yeah, Xerath, of course, constrained by mana requirements, while Akali, yes, her energy costs are disgustingly high now, especially on that Q 5-point strike. Still going to have the wave clear advantage in favor of Hatrixx, and just indicative of how much further that matchup is going to swing in favor of the Akali. Chapapi's not packing TP. Hatrixx, whenever he wants to, can get the favorable reset, continue to apply the pressure, and have Koldo influence the map alongside him.
Yeah, here Koldo looking for maybe a gank bot side. Was spotted by a ward though, or at least he's clicking the ward. The Mountain Dragon up right now, and I don't think DK is able to contest his first dragon whatsoever.
Yeah, Chapapi being a bit greedy with his overstay here. He wants to apply the pressure. He wants to just stay here, greed for a little bit of farm. He knows he's not really in any danger for the next like 10 seconds or so, but he could find himself with a big Leona in his face if he does continue to step this far up.
Dragon being taken down here by Mad, meaning that they have that Mountain Dragon, no Mountain Rift so far. And I'm looking a little bit towards the top lane now, because you don't have any objectives towards bot. Look at the way Alois is pressuring this Sett here. With the Camille, you have a chance to either go for a dive, go for very favorable trades like this, and take away so much CS. So should DK actually rotates towards a Rift Herald now?
So the thing about Camille with Conqueror in particular is the fact that she does like the prolonged trade, she does like the extended all-ins, and the issue is that Sett is so good at just disengaging from them with the W, with the sweet spot that you mentioned earlier, and I think that in a strict 1v1, you should still see the Sett win out for the earlier stages until the Camille becomes that side lane monster. Still though, because that Sett is able to apply some pressure back, that does mean that the Herald rotation from Defusekids will feel a little forced if they do opt into it. And, you know, Yasuo, with Nautilus, even without the Gragas, so good at catching people mid-rotation, so Mad Lions may be a little bit too hesitant to make that 8-minute swap themselves when that timer does tick over.
Yeah, I'm looking at the bot lane right now. No really heavy punishment on the Yasuo at the moment. Both of these bot lane players are going to hit level 6 pretty soon. And this is not the focus from Matt. So they say, look, bot lane is just bot lane. You have the Gragas, you have the Yasuo, you have the Nautilus. Let's focus a little bit more on our solo laners, because look at the CS from Hatrixx, and he's not being punished at all. And while I'm not saying this, Hadess is looking towards a dive bot maybe, although Chapapi is here with that semi-global ultimate, not using it so far.
Yeah, so I think that gank top that Mad set up for was actually fairly telegraphed, because A, the Akali went missing after TP resetting, and B, Mad's bot lane stopped pushing up for the first time up.
Here's the cake alongside Chapapi. He's getting taken down quite fast, and that's a first blood going over towards Koldo. And it was a very tranquil early game, but right now you finally get some action.
I mean, I said the Yasuo was good at catching people mid-rotation, but apparently Lee Sin plus Akali also pretty damn hefty when it comes to that. Werlyb there for good measure, didn't really need to do anything. Instead, as soon as Koldo ticks over, gets access to Dragon Rage, kicks Chapapi in, no chance for a flash, insta pop from this mid lane assassin, and that Akali ball rolling already.
Yeah, just looking at the Hurricane there from Goose, that's my mind is telling me no, but my body is telling me yes, kind of Hurricane to actually go in. But he wasn't level 6 yet. Who is now level 6? Goose is going in, finds a knockup, finds a life breath as well. Teleport coming in. Flakked here going with the exhaust. And Hadess does not get the kill, but it is one kill going over to DK. The showstopper is being used, but Goose is surviving still with that Conqueror. Look at the damage he's being able to put out, but it is just too much to deal with for DK, and they get a pickup on Hadess.
Good collapse from DK, even though they were down the TP, but Mad managed to salvage it. 1-for-1 on the board, and unfortunately for Defusekids, the Lee Sin snowballs with a kill much harder in this early stage of the game than the Xerath can. Chapapi back on the board though, so it's not all doom and gloom, and that 1-for-1, while not certainly ideal, does get them a kill back, does get them some plate and gold on Alois, and does set Defusekids up to scale if they don't lose the game in the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, now you see the importance of that Xerath coming out from Chapapi. So you don't actually need to be in the fights, or you can rotate a little bit towards bot side, and you're always still there with backup for your team. And you can stall waves as long as possible with Xerath. So how important is Xerath being fed here, or getting fed here for the Defusekids?
So I actually don't credit Xerath with being too influential here, just because A, I see him as like a secondary support for the Camille in the side lane, and B, When he's not doing that, he's just clearing waves mid. He's getting prio. He's getting a big engage onto Nightmares, though.
Yeah, Solar Flare being hit, but it's not. I mean, it's too aggressive from Mad that they have to pay it for it with 2 of their lives, 2-3 at the moment for the Defusekids, and hitting the Solar Flare. I mean, not even hitting the sweet spot on Nightmares. Why do you go in if you're Mad?
And that was just bad from Mad Lions there. They didn't respect the fact that Alois had stayed on the Camille. They didn't respect the fact that Hadess could turn it around. Even consider the fact that Chapapi had Xerath ultimate available for good measure in case the Defusekids really wanted to hard commit from that. And you're seeing the turnaround potential, the insta-pop from the Yasuo when in combination of any of the knockups on Defusekids' side. And Defusekids turn around that fight, take firm control of the game, have Herald in pocket for good measure, and there should be one very, very dead tier 1 turret in the top lane. They are 3 melee champions though, so it's a little suspect, but still could very well be that first Tower Blood, Xavier.
If they take this first Third Blood while Koldo is here taking the dragon, I think you're fine with giving up this dragon, because DK's planning is to right now, okay, we have a spike. Let's see if Goose backs what his items are going to be, and if they can get ahead from this one, if they can get that little DK snowball rolling, it's gonna look very dire for Mad Lions.
Yeah, should be Phantom Dancer coming through as quickly as possible for Goose there on the Yasuo. Takes away the Akali's assassination potential. Means Lee Sin's going to punch a little less hard. And we do have an engage on Chapapi again. Oh, Leona full combo.
Yeah, Prime here hits the full combo. Chapapi just flashes away. Good burn on Chapapi, but I do somehow wonder. I mean, Prime goes in, and I was looking at the minimap. There's no one there to follow up. Is this a little bit of bad communication, or is this just I see an opportunity and I need to go for it? Talking about opportunities, Alois is going here on the Sett, trying to find the kill on Werlyb here. He does almost go Super Saiyan, but does not hit the Haymaker.
Yeah, Werlyb does have his flash, but decides, nah, actually, I'll just sidestep this. Credit to him for actually managing that. Nautilus Q, of course, notoriously difficult to actually dodge out on because of the hitbox. But this skirmish is not over yet. Koldo may be in trouble.
Yeah, immediately the Lost Breath being used, and Goose gets another kill, or at least gets a kill, meaning he is 0-1 at... He's 1-0 at the moment, but with 3 assists, and third plating is still the thing at 12 minutes. And the bot lane from DK wants to pump as much gold as possible into Goose right now.
So that insta-kill potential that you see coming through from DK's composition there, with that roaming 3v3 of Yasuo plus the 2 knockups in the Nautilus plus the Gragas, really good instantaneous burst that just takes any member of Mad's composition by storm. Something I did want to touch on though before that play happened was that Prime had got Chapapi's flash on Leona, and that's what you want to do on Leona, because you have Solar Flare 4 times as often as the Xerath has flash, and while speaking of flashes, Hadess.
Yeah, getting cut out immediately, and I want to play-by-play this a bit further, but he just get insta-popped with Hatrixx there, gets a kill. I was talking about Akali with a gunblade. We can see how hard and how fast he can actually burn someone with that 3 and 4 right now. Not a lot of gold lead, but this game's going back and forth constantly, Ibriz.
I mean, I think it's not necessarily a bad look for DK. As I mentioned, as long as they don't hemorrhage resources across the board and actually lose in the next 10-15 minutes, they're fine to trade evenly because they outscale naturally. As long as you take it to the late game, as long as you get this Yasuo online, which to be fair, he absolutely is right now, 100% KP right there. As long as you get Camille and Xerath in positions to do the things they want to do, in the sense of have Camille be able to split push against anyone, have the Xerath just be able to wave clear consistently and dish out the damage from a distance when Mad Lions try to turn around, I really think DK can take it to them in these late game fights. The issue is, Hadess, he's been on the board so far, but we've seen him just turn his brain off in the mid game, and that's where you have to consider the fact that DK may very well, you know, fall apart in terms of this relatively clean shot calling we've seen so far.
I think the way DK can play it is they have 2 options here, so they can go for maybe... Okay. That was a very fast blow up on Alois.
Wow.
Our observers couldn't even follow, so this is exactly what Matt needs to do, by the way. So go for these picks, see if they can let the game plan that is the Defusekids at the moment crumble, make sure their positioning is not all right, and punish it accordingly.
Yeah, the thing is, trading gold even for even against a team that arguably outscales you. Granted, Akali, Aphelios, certainly no pushovers in the late stage of the game themselves. I still think it's a little bit greedy. Also, I mentioned that Okay, yeah, I was going to say, Chapapi had no flash for a long time, so anytime Prime moves up this far, Chapapi has to stay 2 screens away. He just gets Leona, otherwise it's DK. Now looking up for the flank.
Yeah, with the Rite of the Arcane, Flakked is getting a couple of tags in there by those ultimates. And that does mean that, yes, Mad recognizes that, hey, we cannot push up against the Xerath unless we have some diving potential. So Prime, just come with us, make sure you have that Xenoblade and Solar Flare ready.
Yeah, I really, really love it. That's how you play against Xerath in solo queue, how you play against any immobile mage as Leona. You just roam mid every time you ult. And Leona ult, this stage of the game, 70-ish seconds cooldown, and that will just dramatically drop. At level 16, because you consider she has a Cloud Drake as well, probably going to dip to around 35-45 seconds on that cooldown. And that's where it starts to get insanely difficult for the Xerath to navigate these fights. Speaking of difficult navigation, though, Mad have to be really careful about how much vision they give over to DK, because if you face check a Gragas, face check a Nautilus, you'll get Last Breath, you'll get insta-popped, as we've seen so many times before in this game, and it's not a good look for anyone, as Alois looks to have an ugly expression himself right now.
Yeah, with Werlyb, he just hook shots over the wall, is on the wrong side of the river door, so I don't know what exactly he's trying to do here. He could have just went over towards top side, but Werlyb is gonna try and go for that re-engage. Obviously doesn't find it because you are still up against Camille. And right now DK has priority over the river, and I'm maybe looking for an engage onto the mid lane.
Yeah, DK absolutely fine here as long as they do have that surprise potential, as long as they do keep contesting for these blind spots from Mad, make them face check, instantly turn it around. Really beautiful that DK secured the crab for themselves, so no crazy sneaks or re-engages from Leona. Plus, consider, you see Chapapi with 2 pink wards in inventory. This is not something we've come to expect from the DK mid laner. He's like, all right, I'll be full utility this time around. Let's zone out the Mad side and we can try for a turnaround. Flakked really low from the Xerath ult alone, by the way.
Yeah, here they're trying to fight for the dragon. Immediately the kick going in. There's a showstopper. Hadess going golden. The Ocean Dragon went to DK, but from the backline, it's Hatrixx trying to find Chapapi, trying to find Goose. He's not finding though. Beautiful haymaker, getting a double kill in the hands of Mad Lions, and they're absolutely shredding true DK. 4 kills for the Mad Lions, completely dead stopping the tempo from the Defusekids.
And that was without the Sett doing anything in that fight. No Moonlight Vigil, no auto attacks, had to stay the hell away. But the solo laners of Mad Lions showed up. The showstopper stopped DK right in their tracks. And Mad Lions turn it around, they secure the fight, and as you said, they take the momentum, run with it themselves, and make a beeline straight for the second herald of the game.
And this has been such a bad play for the Defusekids, or such a bad turn of events, I should say, because DK, they had the lead, they were going somewhere, and you could slowly let that snowball run, but right now it had just smashed up against the rock that is Mad Lions.
And speaking of DK, even domestically, and of course in day 1 of EU Masters, when behind they look lost. Yes, they can force some fights, and their comp benefits from these random crazy skirmishes that are prone to erupting across the board when 2 aggressive giants like these 2 do meet. I still have my concerns about how they claw their way back in, but they do have a comp that scales well. They should facilitate Alois to just get bigger and bigger on the Camille. And yeah, they can fish for fights with this 3-man goon squad. Nightmares, Hadess, setting up Goose for success as you have the solo laners try and scale up, while this 3-man core from DK look to turn their fortunes around yet again.
Prime and Hatrixx trying to find a tag here onto Goose. Can he get away though? It's still Yasuo. Immediately the flash and the stun right out of the right of your king. Goose is still surviving, but Alois is here in with the teleports, trying to find damage onto Prime. But look at the damage that Alois is taking himself. Here's the Hexag Ultimatum. That's a shutdown, but Prime is still living somehow as he gets taken down. But it is a 2-for-2 trade, and as you said already, Ibriz, trading kills at the moment is favorable for DK.
Actually, beautiful turnaround here from the side of DK to salvage that play. Goose looked a little bit out of sorts there. He got caught out, it got turned around though, and Leona damage came through from Prime to really even that out. Unfortunately for Defusekids, though, while all of that is happening, it looks like an even trade, but they lose the mid lane tier 2, and that does mean that they have just that little bit less map space to work with when they start to navigate for these neutral objectives. Baron, of course, coming up in 30 seconds, but they're fighting over blue right now.
Yeah, fighting over blue buff does seem a little bit inefficient. It does get taken away by Koldo, if I'm not mistaken. Or did it? I think Hadess has blue buff. Not 100% sure on that one.
Me neither, but Chapapi definitely has one, so
yeah.
I'm happy either way if I'm Defusekids really. Oh, Hadess didn't get it, so yeah. Beautiful.
So let's not dwell too long on the blue buff. So, as you said already, trading kills, yada yada yada, better for DK, but on the desk, we talked about mid-game is so difficult to play out, especially against a team like Mad Lions. Is DK doing well, and what do they need to change?
Right, the thing about Mad Lions' mid-game is that, Alois not really having the greatest time of things. Again, you see Prime roaming around to the side lane. Yeah, DK need to be more decisive. They need to pull the trigger on the Yasuo engage and not do that.
Talking about your hands on the trigger, it is being pulled over here by Hadess and the rest of the Defusekids. Werlyb is doing the dance, not being hit by the skill shots. Haymaker doesn't really hit anybody, and Goose gets the knock-up, gets the last breath, and gets a kill. So DK at now is sort of causing chaos in Mad Lions, I feel.
Yeah, DK trade one back, but they lose a lot of pressure across the board. Remember that Alois did die on the sideline leading up to that. And the issue with the Xerath is that he can't safely clear waves. The Q has a charge up time. If you have no one with him, like you saw just then, he's just zoned out. As soon as anyone from Mad threatens by stepping forward, he has to back off. He can't clear it, and they get a lot of pressure in response to Werlyb being picked off in that top lane.
The next dragon is spawning in a couple of seconds, meaning that the Defusekids... I mean, you kind of want to contest this dragon, but they're not at soul points just yet. So Mad Lions, if you let them take this dragon, it is one ocean dragon in our pocket. It is not the biggest... It's not a big deal. There are worse things to happen in this game. But now, right now, DK looking for an engage, looking for a death push, which you are kind of known for to set up.
I mean, if there ever was a comp for it, this would be it. Werlyb might be the one facing it himself, though.
Dodges the anchor, but doesn't dodge the belly slam, and that is Werlyb probably going down. A lot of damage here from the Haymaker and the Showstopper, but not enough to eventually get out of this fight. DK gets another pick and is going for the dragon, but look at the way Matt is pushing her in this mid lane.
Yeah, Matt just immediately responding with some pressure mid, some pressure top, gonna rotate for this tier 2, and DK have to think, alright, we got the top laner, we got a second Ocean Drake, but was it worth it? Yes, the Ocean Drakes make the Xerath siege really beautiful, but you are being sieged right now. They've traded immediate gold for a long-term investment, which is, to be fair, the name of the game for their composition. We said scaling, 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 especially on these solo laners, but how much of a lead can you give to Mad before they just decide to close the game?
It depends on how long this game is gonna drag on. We are only at 20 minutes so far, so a lot of things have happened in those 20 minutes, and DK has lost 5 turrets. But if they can hold on to this one, especially if they can hold on to the inhibitors, we've seen something like a Sector 1 being able to claw back if you have a late game scaling team.
So something I do want to touch on while we are talking about the scaling and the 1v1 because of the side laners as well. Look at the inventories of Werlyb and Alois. These are the new Death's Dance components, and yeah, well, Death's Dance already completed for Werlyb, no component necessary. Probably going to be built towards by Alois here. The GA could also be an option, but no, Null Magic does confirm it's going to be that Death's Dance. Of course, Death's Dance now building through Aegis, and this just adds a lot more tankiness to bruisers that were already notoriously difficult to kill. But someone who isn't difficult to kill is whoever gets tagged by Hadess's big Gragas engage. Predator pop, some zoning for good measure, and Alois even fishing for a flank on the mid lane too, if he needs to.
And just because Mad Lions does not have a really hard front line, besides from maybe Prime, as soon as you hear that Predator sound being popped, you know, we need to get out. Because if we're not under a turret, we're going to get dove or we're going to get popped instantly. So DK, as long as they can, you know, show off their main, show off like, hey, we're here, we're ready to fight, and we're staying, make sure that you're not in the river. Because Mad Lions want to take control of this river, but with those insta-bot potential, it's very difficult for them.
My main concern for DK right now is that a lot of their denial vision game was dictated towards the bottom half of the map to support Alois in his split push. That means they have to check the Baron with the Xerath ultimate, they have to check it with Nightmares' face,
Yeah, but Nightmares is just too tanky. He is the Nautilus, and Mad Lions is not getting through those brawlers at the moment. And with Chapapi here as well, Mad Lions has a slow game tempo, but they are starting the Baron.
Yeah, Werlyb, Koldo, pretty scary in the 2v2. Hatrixx on the side for good measure as well. I don't necessarily agree with Prime being in this pit. He could run interference as Hatrixx looks to do some of that himself.
Hades immediately goes golden, is fearful of the Akali. Hatrixx here with the Soul Flare being used, but Goose is not being tagged. He's being ulted on though by the Showstopper. The carries are still alive. Teleport's coming out from Alois. Double kill for Hatrixx at the moment. And can DK survive this one? I do believe that Alois was able to get out of that position. Was a very fearful teleport, a very fearful spot to teleport in. And Mad Lions Madrid is starting this Baron once again.
DK look for the crazy 5v5, can't find the engage. Look, last breath still available, not too much that can be done here. No smite, yes Xerath's alive, but only so much poking you can do, but they're going to fish for the re-engage anyway. Alois is pretty big.
Yeah, he's going in, finds the stun, but does not find the damage so far. The Baron is at 1 HP, does not get stolen away, and Goose is going in. He has a Conquer, goes golden as well. That's 1 kill for Alois on Prime.
Alois?
And Alois goes in, but gets blast going away. Somehow, Mad Lions is surviving here. Chapapi, can he find it? Yes, he does. Flag is going down. Right, if the Arcane is still up, and the Predator is being popped. Werlyb gets out with just a hair on his skin, and that does mean that the Defusekids, they have not gotten the Baron, but they are winning these fights.
Defusekids trade back. Mad Lions on the full disengage there. A good follow-up from DK, but it's not enough to salvage that Baron play. Baron in pocket for Mad. 8 kills in the pocket of Hatrixx's Akali, and we said, I don't know if there really is a world where the Akali can hold the Camille in the side lane. And Hatrixx said, "Shut up, hold my true damage and KDA microphone." Yeah, gonna
Nice
just
save.
show up on the Akali, and yeah, really, really difficult for anyone on DK to match Hatrixx right now.
Hatrixx, I know you're a fan of Hatrixx, and we're not going to beat around the bush.
I think we all are.
I think seeing play this way, I think we all are. He's 8-1 on the Akali. He's able to side lane against Alois, who is on level 15 Camille. That is scary to put that on your resume right now. Mad Lions pushing in with his Baron buff.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is like the story of Mad Lions' regular season dominance as well. You have Flakked 1-3-2 on the Aphelios, just doing whatever. He's there for a good time, you know, also playing this game, while the rest of his team just comes up huge. And well, here's a
Beautiful casket coming out from Hades, and that's the engage onto Mad Lions, but it's not enough. Goose goes down, does not get those executes in, and the inhibitor from DK will eventually fall. Mad Lions still has the Baron buff available, and they're looking towards top lane. What is Alois doing? Yes, this is an important dragon maybe, but your base is crumbling in and shattering Alois. Recall immediately, because you're already 1 inhib down and you're gonna lose a second one.
And Alois showing his face by taking that Drake does mean Mad know that they're safe to push this out. They have synced the minion waves. They can crash the Baron empowered waves, and they can actually go for the end here. Here's the re-engage from DK though.
Yeah, Nightmares finds a depth charge from below, does not find it well enough, and here's Chapapi in the backlink. Can he do the damage? Beautiful haymaker, such a shield, so much damage, and Alois with the Hextech ultimatum is able to execute someone, and DK might actually survive this onslaught. Hatrixx is still alive, Goose is alive, but not anymore. Prime, Koldo, and Hatrixx. It is 3 up against 3. Defusekids. Alois is going back in, does not find a hookshot onto Prime. Zenith Blade also does not connect, and DK will survive for another day. But at what cost, Ibriz? At what cost?
2 inhibs, 2 Nexus turrets, and 2 additional kills for good measure. Mad make the Baron power play, they make the convincing claim for Defusekids' base, and they make Defusekids' life hell for the next couple of minutes. Waiting for that Ocean Dragon Soul win condition from the side of DK, but will they have the 3.5 minutes required for that to spawn? Signs point to no if Mad continue at the pace they have currently accelerated the game towards.
And we do only see a 5k gold lead for Mad. I say only. It does mean that Mad Lions needs to find one more engage. I don't even think they need to fight here. Just go for that final inhibitor, push in the waves, you can even wait for another Baron. And DK, needs to do something because they are bleeding out and they only have one inhibitor left.
I think 4k of that is probably in the pocket of Hatrixx on the Akali alone relative to his opponent, as you do have the re-engaged Fishbowl here.
Nightmare goes in, Primes get stacked immediately. That's the Solar Flare being used in the bedtime. It's Goose going in with the final breath. Hexacle the made him onto Hatrixx, but he is invisible. Look at the dash. He's dashing out. Hatrixx is dead, and that does mean that the Defusekids has an opportunity to win this fight. Rather, the Arcane is being used, does not find gold. Finds it with the last one, and that's the American sniper. I mean, the European sniper on Chapapi here, as he eventually defends his base for his spot in the play-ins.
3 members of Mad left alive with no real objective take for the side of DK though, so it's not something they can really win off of, but it's breathing time. It's valuable time to scale up. It's valuable time for your inhibs to come back up, and it's valuable time you can spend to try and close this 10 turret to 2 gap that you've currently found yourself in. DK, they stay alive for another day. They stay alive for another Drake, hopefully, and they stay alive to, as you said, keep their hopes of escaping this group with a potential first seed alive.
Defusekids, I mean, they're on the edge of their seat, as are probably most of our viewers at the moment, because one bad team fight and they lose this game. Mad Lion has only lost 2 turrets, and all of their mid lane turrets are remaining, so they can afford to make these little aggressive plays, or little, I say, to make these little mistakes and still come out on top, because the next objective, that Baron, is going to be super important for them.
2 things I want to point out about Hatrixx in particular there, though. He had his Hourglass, didn't use it, perhaps got surprised by the insane amount of CC being pumped out of DK. Also consider the fact that Hatrixx has as many kills as Koldo has assists, and vice versa. That is just testament to how these two play together so well. They play around each other, and they are the win condition here. Predator being popped, though, is one of DK's win conditions, as Hadess does fish for a follow-up into the Xerath ult, but right now, some valuable cooldowns being used for no real reason from the side of DK.
And DK is desperately holding off this wave. They want this engage. That's a casket from Hate, but it's not connecting onto anybody. And that's the important ultimate on cooldown for them, along with the Ride of the Arcane. And the Baron is being started by Mad Lions.
Yeah, Baron should be taken fairly quickly. This is now Flakk's time to shine. He's had a pretty low-key game so far. Full utility Aphelios build, 2 defensive items, and an Essence Reaver opener. Really not the best look for a hard carry champion, but he still does insane damage to neutral objectives, so why the heck not? Defusekids just going to give this up, just going to cede it, just going to say, alright, we're still stemming the bleeding. Let's set up some sort of defensive vision line to make sure that Mad don't end the game with this Baron, and let's try and contest for that Dragon Soul.
Defusekids, to continue the analogy, they have cauterized this wound so far, but it is still open for a huge trauma as Hatrixx is trying to, or Defusekids is trying to cut out Hatrixx here. He's surviving. That's Zanias, which will leave you stuck in place. Uses the ultimate, the perfect execution to get away, and blows up Hades, but not enough. Hades is still alive, and that is Hatrixx gone. Defusekids is able to stall this game even longer. The prime member from Mad Lions is dead.
But they traded that win condition of the Ocean Dragon Soul in exchange, and that means that the Defusekids again just kind of sat on their hands for the next 5 minutes, waiting for a chance to materialize. Granted, you've seen Nightmares go aggressive on the Nautilus, you've seen Hadess throw out his fair share of casks, for better or for worse, but they're still not in a position where they can make the proactive plays. Something we love about Yasuo Gragas is that they always have the proactive play, they always have the engage opportunities, they always have the surprise turnaround, but they're very limited in what they can do right now just because of how big certain members of Mad Lions are. 16k gold, 4k gold lead for Hatrixx alone here on the Akali. Not to fanboy, not to hype one member up as the sole carry of Mad Lions, but oh man, that is not a good feeling for Chapapi, who is now relegated to complete wave clear duty.
I mean, you were spot on with the prediction that Mad Lions, or at least that Hatrixx, would have had a 4k gold lead compared to Chapapi, and it is impressive. He does get cut out, so that means that, yes, Defusekids gets shut down, the most prominent member from Mad Lions, but we keep talking about stalling the game. We keep talking about all kinds of analogies to cauterize a wound, to make sure you don't bleed out. Defusekids, one more push is their end. So do they need to play proactive, or do they need to wait for mistakes from Mad Lions, as he kind of been making consistently?
So I think that they are going to start fishing for these fights, A, because Aphelios still doesn't do that much damage, just because of the way Flakked has built this out. As we said before, 2 utility items plus Essence Reaver, not really the best look for him. Also, B, Alois is kind of itemized for both split push, but also he is a legitimate teamfight threat now, and I think that that does really lend a lot of credence to DK's chances at taking a 5v5. You just have to keep your eyes on Hadess for the Miracle Engage, for the good lineup of the Cask into the last breath, for Goose to go crazy and win out here again.
Goose here trying to find someone, at least clear the waves here. The Baron buff being picked up by Mad Lions means that they're gonna try and go for these inhibitors once more. Alois is trying to go for Mad Lions instead. Prime's getting caught out. He's pretty tanky. The showstopper into
Hatrixx.
the front line. Hatrixx, can he survive this one? Here comes the last breath onto a carry member, but the Alois gets kicked away. Mad Lions is in disarray, and no one has died yet, but Chapapi gets the first kill in this fight. Flex is dead. Hatrixx is still alive. Chapapi goes golden. Look at Koldo, does not find the last Q and is not able to carry this fight. It is Defusekids getting 3 kills, and this Defusekids now firmly in the driver's seat. It is Defusekids trying to push his mid lane wave, and this Defusekids still kicking and living strong.
Defusekids live out through the Baron buff, they live out through that fight, they keep the GA alive on Alois as well, so this Camille is huge. Defusekids, they find the Miracle Engage, they find the Miracle Turnaround, and they find a mid inhib on top of it. They could very well find the game if they want to push for it as well.
Yeah, here's the mid lane inhibitor going down. Only 2 members from Mad Lions surviving. 13 seconds on Flakked. That's the engage right onto the top lane. That does mean that, sorry, the jungler does mean that Mad Lions does not have anyone to defend his base. Defusekids is actually gonna do it, Ibriz. And this is Defusekids going into this game strong and closing it out.
Defusekids claim first seed for the first time, and they hold it by themselves until later today, maybe. As long as there are no upsets, they should keep hold of that, and that is genuinely beautiful play coming out of the Dutch representatives. It looks shaky at times, much like my webcam's focus there, because I got a little bit too close with my hand gestures, but wow, that was one hell of a game.
Defusekids actually playing towards their strengths and knowing that we need one fight, one opportunity, one chance to not mess this up, and they actually didn't. They played it out beautifully, and we were expecting Mad Lions to 100% come out of this group as the first seed, but they are looking very shaky right now in these play-ins.
I mean, oh man, that was just a huge performance from the jungle mid duo of Mad. But again, you're seeing them unable to close out games in the mid game, unable to finish off these flailing opponents. And it felt like the Nexus towers dropped, 2 inhibs dropped for the better part of 10 minutes, and they didn't do anything with it. Yeah, they got a Baron. They didn't close with it. Aphelios never did damage. Sett felt largely invisible. Credit to Prime for being very proactive when we haven't really seen that much from him in the past. I like the Leona. That was a lot of their lead, was just Leona going crazy. But they didn't do enough with it, and Defusekids outlasted the storm. They weathered it, and they turned it the hell around with one miracle teamfight. And Hadess finding that engage was beautiful.
And one more thing I want to say is, yes, Mad Lions' mid-game is strong, but they need to work a little bit more onto their late game. And we're going to go into a small little break here, so don't go anywhere too far, because we'll be right back.